Hey everybody. All right. So I've had some people asking me what my view on guns and gun control is. Some people apparently haven't uh, watched any of my previous videos and that sort of thing, but fair enough. Um, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna give my thoughts on it. First off, I want to say that I am not in favor of gun bans. I'm in favor of the most basic of gun control. Basically, checking to see if someone has any pre-existing mental illnesses, that sort of thing. Not really too big of a deal. Um, but I think to take away someone's constitutional right to own a gun, you have to have a damn good reason. Them sitting there and disagreeing with the current government is not a good reason. In fact, that's every reason to allow them to keep it. So, what have we got going on here? Well, I have people saying, well, what about, these school shootings? Well, here's the thing. If we didn't allow these schools to take away the teachers' rights to carry pistols with them, do you really think those gunmen would have made it as far as they did? Really? Do you? I mean, someone who's actually properly trained with a gun, who is allowed to carry a gun, isn't going to necessarily be a danger to others around them. I mean, is there a risk? Yeah, of course. What if they miss and end up hitting someone else? There's always that what if. But here's the thing. That gunman wasn't missing and hitting someone else. He was out there specifically to hit someone else. Does it mean that the teachers would have been able to stop the gunman? No. But they would have had a better chance than sitting there and having to just take bullets for their students. Because here's something that people aren't talking about. That gunman came in there with the intention to kill a lot of people. And I don't care which shooting you're talking about. They came prepared to kill a lot of people, so they came with a lot of ammunition. I guarantee you do not have enough teachers to act as meat shields for those students to bullet sponge every round that that individual has. If the teachers had had guns, then at least they would have stood a chance of stopping the threat and minimizing damage. And some people are all like, oh, well, they had an armed guard there and he didn't do anything. Yeah, no shit. That's the reason why I'm saying do not trust police or any variant of them. Do not trust law enforcement with your safety. You should not have to trust law enforcement with your safety. If there is law enforcement there, of course, by all means, let them take care of it. But if they're not doing anything, then it's your duty to stand up and to do something. But what these people that are trying to grab your guns want to do is make you a helpless victim. And make you dependent on the police. I want you to go ahead and do something. In your local area, look up average police response time. Now, in my area, you're looking at anywhere from 15 minutes to 2 hours. Well, let's say that the police are always on the ball and they're there within 15 minutes. What can happen in 15 minutes? A rape can happen within 15 minutes. A murder can happen within 15 minutes. Multiple murders can happen within 15 minutes. I mean, look at this mass shooting. 5 minutes. How many dead in Florida? How many dead in Columbine? And we're not talking about long, long periods, because the police were there fairly quickly. A lot faster than the average. And look at what happened. And I'm not dogging on police. I'm not. Now, the ones in Florida, the ones that were just hiding behind their cars outside, listening to the shit happen. Now them, those motherfuckers I blame. Quite frankly, I think they should get the chair, along with the shooter. I think anyone that does a mass shooting, no. As soon as it's proven that you were committing that mass shooting, I don't care if you had mental issues, I don't care what. I do not give a shit. You should be given the chair. I'm not talking about lethal injection because they drug you up so much that you don't really feel any pain. Yeah, you feel the initial burn. That's about it. No. I'm not talking about a humane way. Hell, I think we should bring back hanging specifically for those people. And specifically hang them so that it doesn't snap their neck, so that they literally get strangled to death. And we should make a public show of it. And I know that that sounds harsh, but I'm a harsh person. And we need to send a message that that sort of shit will not be tolerated. You're not going to sit there and get the rest of your life full of 3 hots and a cot. No. One of the reasons why we have such heinous crime happening in this country is because bleeding hearts are sitting there and saying, oh, well, you don't know if the person's guilty. If the person's on camera, their fingerprints are all over the gun, they sit there and admit that they fucking did it, you can be pretty sure they fucking did it. Just saying. Especially when, they called into the police saying, hey, I'm going to do something fucked up if you don't come get me. And then the police didn't do it. Again, another failing. And that wasn't just of local police there, that was also with the FBI. That's our federal government putting your tax dollars to no good use. And the thing is that situation actually gives credence to the people that are saying that this shit's engineered. Well, I mean, hell, we still don't have answers for the Nevada shooting. We have no answers about that. No one's been able to figure out why. What, the guy just snapped and decided, hey, I'm going to go to a hotel room, rent out a hotel room, take up a bunch of guns, and start randomly firing into a crowd of people. Right as the gun debate was starting to be lost on the general populace. Interesting. And I'm not a conspiracy nut. I'm not. But I do follow fact patterns, and the thing is a lot of this shit's not really fucking adding up. Closest one that adds up was Columbine. I can see that. I can understand it. Or should I say I can understand the reasoning why those kids did it. And it wasn't because of video games. It wasn't because their parents played Doom. Nowhere remotely close to it. These kids were social outcasts. I was a social outcast for quite a few years. Till I learned how to navigate through the different groups. But even then, I was never really part of the group. I was that guy that ghosted between different social groups as I needed help from each group. But The sad fact of the matter is a lot of these could have been avoided. The one in Vegas, again, we don't have any real definitive answers. No one knows what the hell happened. At least that's the story. So am I saying that there was a way to prevent that? Probably not. Just like with any terrorist attack, it's not always something you could have done. Sometimes shit comes out of the blue. You had no warning. But again, with every terrorist attack, usually there could have been some signs that could have been picked up if it wasn't for the bleeding hearts. If it wasn't for the people sitting there and saying, "Oh, well, you know, that's profiling." Sorry, the profiling can work. If I see someone walking into a very public area and they look fairly barrel-chested, wearing, you know, the hair piece, I don't know what it's called. You know, that sort of shit. I'm going to look sideways at him. Why? Because I'm waiting to hear him start yelling. And if it's not in English, I am running in the opposite direction as fast as possible. If I see someone walking towards a school holding a long rifle, or armed to the fucking teeth, or them hop out of a van in full garb, or in a trench coat, I'm going to be keeping my eye on that. Unfortunately, where I live, for you to get a concealed carry, you have to be found to be of good moral character by the sheriff's department. Fair enough. Except for the fact that the sheriff should not have that authority. You have to go through a mental check. All right, cool. But they say it can't exceed the cost of $150. Okay. Okay, keeping it cheap for the people. Got it. All right. They'll have you look at a few ink blots, and that's about it. For $150. $150 gets you like 30 seconds with any therapist. But then they also say you have to demonstrate a good reason. Well, here's my good reason. I want to be a concealed carrier. Because if the situation arises to where others or myself are in danger, I wish to not be a helpless victim. I don't want the police to have to come there and clean me up with a mop, along with everyone else there. How's that for a good reason? The thing is, we've got so many gun-free zones, and, you know, it's amazing to me that no one is really talking about these mass shootings, and, well, at least no one in the mainstream media is really talking about how these mass shootings are carried out in gun-free zones. Very soft targets. Now, if I was someone that wanted to sit there and go, all right, I don't care about the consequences of my actions at this point. What can I do to do the most damage? I'm not going to be storming a government building. I would go after a school. Or a hospital. Something of that nature. Something that says, this is a gun-free zone. That means, odds are, no one's going to be shooting back at me. And I get to fire with impunity until the police get there. And then hide behind their cars for 5 minutes, letting me do my thing. Till actual people who want to help out show up. I've always said it doesn't hurt to think like a serial killer every once in a while, just for the sake of prevention. Funny thing is, I got that from Ill Will Press, a character named Foamy the Squirrel, and it makes sense. People are going out and putting themselves at risk for no reason whatsoever. And you got people that are sitting there and saying, oh, well, guns are scary. That's why concealed carry is a thing. Most of the time, when someone's concealed carrying, you don't know any different. Unless they have to draw their gun to defend people. At which point you're glad to see that gun. And I think that it's amazing that we don't see the news covering instances where guns are used to protect people. They only do 24-hour coverage on mass shootings or murders, unjustified shootings. Kind of makes it hard to not say, hey, these guys are pushing an anti-gun narrative, since they're being anti-gun, because they're only covering the negative side of guns and not positives. Because if you ask most people in the US, they can tell you what the latest mass shooting, where it was. Maybe the body count. The name of the person who did it. Now, without cheating and using Google, when was the last time a gun was used to save somebody? What was the name of the person using the gun? Hell, what was the name of the criminal? What was the criminal trying to do to them? Or their family? Or others in the area? I'm waiting. Bet you can't name it. Hell, even I can't. And I'm someone who's paying closer attention than average. And this is where the real problem comes in. And then whenever someone sits there and tries to bring this up, there's always that person. That person. Always there. Saying, you just want dead kids. And it's very difficult for people like me who tend to fly off the handle when that level of stupidity is shown. Especially being a sarcastic fuck like I am. For me to not sit there and say, no. I don't want to see dead kids. I really don't. Your kids, however, to make sure that your genetic lineage stops and that our gene pool stays strong, or fails to become weaker anyway, I'm okay with that. It's very difficult not to say that to these people. Because at that point, then they use that as confirmation that you want dead kids. And the thing is, their kids have nothing to do with it. It's something wrong to say. It's something wrong to even think. I'll openly admit that. But, well, society's kind of warped me a little bit when it comes to that sort of thing. I don't feel that way. I really don't. I don't think that kids should be punished for the stupidity of their parents. However, what I am saying is, if you're going to sit there and throw baseless accusations at people, be prepared for them to eventually become the monster that you're portraying them as. It comes down to the whole mentality of with children. The whipping boy syndrome. You've got a kid that doesn't do anything wrong, follows the rules, all in out, a stand-up kid. But they keep getting blamed for the negatives of the kids around them. They keep getting punished for it. Eventually it's going to settle into that kid's head that they're going to get blamed for this no matter what. They're going to consistently be cast as the victim. Or not victim, but as the villain. Without having any of the perks of being the villain. And without any of the perks of actually being a victim of something. Which that's a discussion in and of itself. But eventually, they're going to start doing the shit along with these other kids. With the negative influences. Because they're already going to be punished for it anyway. Might as well have the fun, right? Might as well get the benefits of having done something wrong. No matter how short-lived. Because if you're going to be paying the cost, well then, might as well utilize the service. I'll go ahead and use a kind of far out there example. But just imagine if you were a guy and every single day you got a ticket for double parking in front of your job. Every single day. Hell, even once a week, even once a month. You got that ticket, even though your car is on the opposite side of the fucking parking lot in its own space. And you had to walk through the ball evaporatingly hot weather to walk across that tarmac that you're literally seeing people cook eggs on because it's so hot out. They crack an egg and it cooks on that sidewalk or on the tarmac or whatever. But you keep getting that. Eventually, you're just going to start double parking saying, hey, I'm already having to pay for this. Might as well start doing it, right? If I'm going to pay for it, I might as well at least get the benefit of doing it. Or a guy walking home from work every single day ends up having to walk or drive by a corner that's known for prostitution. Every time he ends up driving on his way home through that area, let's say it's the only way he can get there, he has to go by that corner. He gets pulled over and arrested for soliciting prostitution. Soliciting a prostitute. Well, eventually he's going to actually start picking up a prostitute and bringing them home and fucking their brains out because he's already paying the price. Do you see what I'm saying? Constantly casting someone as a villain will eventually turn them into a villain. But the thing is these people, you don't want to make them the villain that you're making them out to be. So if you think things are bad now, no. You're just looking at making the mass population into something absolutely horrible. And that would not be something that even your precious little government can control. Not without going full authoritarian, which I know some people want. But I digress. People ask, well, what's your solution? My solution? Arm the teachers. Pay them more. Pay the ones that are willing to concealed carry on the job. Pay them more. They've earned it, because then they have to go through training. Sit there and say you have to do mandatory training. All right, fair enough. Say part of your job is you have to spend this many hours out on the firing range every month. And the minimum increment can be this. Fair enough. At that point, school shooters are going to think twice, because they're going to be all like, I don't know which teacher owns a gun. I don't know which classroom I can go into and shoot up without getting riddled full of holes myself. Does that mean that school shooters would start targeting the teachers first? Yes. But at that point, at least the teachers have a way to fight back, to potentially be able to protect their kids. Hell, if another teacher down the hall hears gunfire, they'll be able to be prepared. Again, minimalizing casualties, minimalizing damage. Also, go ahead and run drills. And I'm talking about in every school. Is it going to traumatize some kids? Yes. Yes, it will. But eventually, after a couple times of being traumatized like that, one of two things is going to happen. Either they're going to start being homeschooled because their parents are like, fuck this shit. Or those kids are going to end up getting the situation down. And they'll know how to respond. And yes, I'm saying be realistic about it. Some people are like, oh, well, then they know it's a drill and that sort of thing. Well, again, I'm going to be a fucked up person. Because everyone's all like, oh, think of the children. I am thinking of the children. I'm thinking that they need to learn that this shit can happen. That just because they're kids, they are not invincible. And that their choices have consequences. So if a student ends up, fucking around and that sort of thing, and all like, oh, it's just a drill, it doesn't fucking matter. Go ahead and have it so the active shooter, person pretending to be the active shooter, if they're around and they see that shit, if one of the kids just stands up and walks through, have the teacher run up to try to get them, have some blood packs on that teacher, and have it where the active shooter shoots the teacher. And the blood packs go off. And the kid actually thinks that he just got his teacher killed. Right there in front of him and everyone else. That'll send a message. And that kid won't fuck around anymore. In fact, that kid might end up having to go to loony bin. But, you know what? If he's going to be a little prick like that, and be willing to put people in danger because he doesn't believe the situation that he's in, fuck him. Or her. But more than likely, it'll be a guy there. Like, let's be honest. Male nature, girls at that point are going to be all like, yeah, just in case. Whereas with guys, whatever. But that comes down to another topic of us teaching young boys early on that they're disposable. But, again, I digress. That's an issue that can be addressed later. So, yeah. Oh, metal detectors. Another big thing. We have them at airports. We have them in jewelry stores. We have them in banks. We have armed security. Oh. Airports, you don't want the plane blown up, fair enough. Jewelry stores, protecting valuables. Again, banks, protecting valuables. Are children not valuable? Are they not our most valuable resource in this country? Your future? I think they're worth the protection. But I also don't want their future liberties to be taken away to protect them now. So yeah, I'm in sense of actual... I'm in favor of actual common sense being used to combat this. But I'm not a fan of common sense gun control. No. Because a lot of people don't know anything about guns. I'm not an expert on guns. I'm not. In any way, shape, or form. You sit there, hold a gun out in front of me, and ask me what caliber it is, I'm going to be looking on the thing for the little engraving saying what caliber it is. Unless I just outright recognize it. Like you throw a Ruger pistol in front of me, I might. Like if it's the same model that I have, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's a 22 long rifle. You throw a Glock in front of me, I'm probably going to be like, yeah, I think that's a 9mm. But if you're asking me anything more advanced than that, I don't know it. But the thing is I'm also not afraid of things that I don't know. Fear with me sets in once I know how dangerous something is. And I do know how dangerous guns can be when in the wrong hands. And I'm going to suggest something here, and I know that this is a controversial position to take on this. But I think part of high school, in fact, I think freshman year in high school, you should have to take a gun safety course and be subjected to mental screening. Hell, I think mental screening should have to be done throughout high school on every student. So that way we can see where this shit pans out. Then that also allows for a data reference point. So if one of these people later on in life ends up being like the fucknut in Nevada, they can sit there and go, what were the warning signs? Were there any here? Or did something happen between when they left high school and got to this point? I mean, at least then you narrow down the window. Another thing, mental health facilities. We need them all over the place. I think every single town, I don't care how few people you have, every single town should have to have a mental health facility, and at least for every 30 people have a clinical psychiatrist or psychologist. I'm not a big fan of Big Pharma. So, and I don't remember exactly off the top of my head whether it's a psychiatrist or a psychologist that can prescribe medication. But whichever one that is, no. I would prefer the other. I would prefer the one that doesn't prescribe medication. Because then they can refer them to one of the ones that does prescribe medication. If they're all like, I cannot help you. But you see, again, this is common sense. And so, of course, most people won't get it. Most people won't understand it. But our biggest problem in America isn't guns. Our biggest problem in America isn't gun violence. It isn't smoking. It isn't drinking. It's mental health. It's very difficult to get mental health help. And it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, man, woman, black, white, pretty much, yeah, no matter what you are, you're fucked. So, how can we solve all this? Well, unfortunately, there's no quick fix. There would have to be an entire string of policy changes that would have to happen. Not just in schools, not just in other gun-free zones, but in local, state, and federal government. And all of it needs to be based around our rights that are given to us by the Constitution. A lot of people are trying to say, oh, the Constitution is just a piece of paper. Well, here's the thing. You know what else is just a piece of paper? A restraining order. Just a piece of paper. You know what else is just a piece of paper? Money. A driver's permit. a judgment handed down by a court. Do I need to go on? There's a lot of things that are just a piece of paper that people put their faith in. Maybe it's time to start putting our faith into the Constitution and into ourselves.